Welcome to the ICC Pulse Podcast, the show where we get to come alongside you and members across the country to equip and encourage. I'm Bo Hansen, your host for Season 6, and today's an exciting and kind of inspirational episode for me. It's about becoming a master code professional. Y'all, these are the Jedis of our industry. And if you're like me and maybe a little bit intimidated by all this episode might give you a good nudge. We'll talk to a couple of amazing MCPs and the Jedi Master herself of ICC's exam universe. All right, here we go. Wherever you're at, may the pulse be with you. So to get this episode started, we have Yoda in the flesh joining us. Autumn Saylor is here. And if you don't know who Autumn is, she is the director of ICC credentialing. So all of us young Padawans, we got to go through her. So be sure to pay attention to what she says. Autumn, it's so nice to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
I love what you get to do on a day-to-day basis because all of us who are members, of course, we're always trying to get new certifications, always learning. And so that all comes through you. So tell us what your day-to-day looks like.
Yeah, so I would prefer to look at it as our department because it's our team that manages this.
Right.
We have half of our team is responsible for the test development. They're the ones, our program managers and our psychometrician that develop the exams and put the exams together with the help of subject matter experts. And then we have our support side of it. They're the ones that handle what happens before the exam, during the exam, and after the exam. So all of the credentialing itself comes through that side.
You know, are you more just managing that process or do you actually get into the weeds and have a part in that?
Oh, I get into the weeds as much as my staff will let me. I've been at ICC for 16 years. I've been in the credentialing department the entire time. I've done it all. I started out in the services side and then was a test developer, program manager, and then I'm now the director. So I still jump in and run and help with exam development committees as needed and just help staff with the day-to-day processing as well.
How did you find ICC?
I actually stumbled upon ICC. So I moved from Florida to Alabama and I was looking for a job and this one sounded interesting.
You're not a University of Alabama fan, are you?
My husband is.
Okay.
So by marriage, yes.
Yeah, I'm wondering how this interview is going to go. I'm an old Aggie fan. And likewise, I didn't go to A&M, but I married an Aggie. So I guess we can be civil in this conversation. It's not too deep. Okay.
I will tell you a good thing is I had applied to Texas A&M and I had hoped to go to Texas A&M. So does that at least help?
Who doesn't want to go to Texas A&M? But anyway, we're chasing rabbits here. We're here to talk about Master Code Professionals, which are essentially the Jedis of our industry and MCPs, as we affectionately call it. And so you see it all. So is there one route or are there multiple routes? Tell us about that process.
There's multiple routes that candidates can take to achieve the Master Code Professional. The most common one is a series of 10 exams, which are 20 core credits. And they take those 10 exams and they also have to have 10 elective credits. So it's a total of 30 credits in order for them to achieve the Master Code Professional. The second route that they can use is a series of combination designations. But at the end of the day, it's still the same number of exams.
That's what I was wondering. I'm currently working on my CBO. So if I choose that route, a couple of combination certifications, I'm not getting ahead by going that route. It's still going to be a wash.
To get the combination designations that you would be able to use for this is each one of those designations, other than the CBO, is 3 certifications and an exam module.
So at the end of the day, it shakes out to about the same. You've seen a lot of folks get this and the aptitude of these folks. Generally speaking, this is like cream of the crop. Has that been your experience too? Is this kind of the pinnacle of our industry?
Absolutely, it is. It is I consider it the upper echelon of the certifications. It is our top tier certification.
So my background, I never thought I would be in the position I'm here with the city of Beaumont, much less the certifications with ICC. I just got my first certification and then that led to another. So maybe someone young out there who just has one certification on their belt who might have stumbled across this podcast, what encouragement would you give them to go after something as lofty as the MCP?
I would imagine that people that are in the building safety community strive for perfection and strive for safety. And I would encourage them to continue to level up and obtain as many certifications as they can.
I love that her knee jerk instantly went to safety. And that's been my experience with interviewing a lot of the code council professionals is that is the heartbeat of the International Code Council. And so, yes, you're absolutely right. If you begin to care about building safety, why would you not want to expand your knowledge into other fields, like whether it be the fire or any of them? They all overlap and all create a safer product for the industry. I love that. So thanks for going there. One of my favorite questions in general, Pulse podcast aside, is what do you really want someone to know? If you meet somebody and they ask what you do, what's the one thing you really want them to hear about your job?
Can I answer it a different way?
Yeah.
So, one of the favorite things that I love about my job, and I think that's probably the better way to say it, is I feel like I get to play such an integral part in public safety. I am playing a part, even though my part is behind the scenes in helping to ensure that the buildings that my children are in and my grandchildren are in are safe, the schools that they attend, the hospitals that they may need to go to. To me, I get to play a very small but important part in public safety.
Love that. There have been multiple times in my young career where that has just naturally bubbled out, being at the counter talking with a investor who's flipping a house, and they're saying, why do I have to do all this? Why, whether it be electrical that wasn't inspected behind the walls, they've already put sheetrock up, and we're trying to explain to them why we need to look at that. Here's the reason: because you're probably going to sell that house to a family, and a 4-year-old is going to be sleeping in that bedroom. And it becomes infinitely, as a dad, it becomes infinitely more personal when you think about who is reaping the benefits of the building safety industry. Love that. Thanks, Autumn. We're going to bring you back a little later to unload some more knowledge on us. But first, let's talk to a couple of MCPs. Valerie Evans is joining us, and she is the building official for North Las Vegas. Valerie, how long have you been in that title?
Just about 8 years. I've been at North Las Vegas for just over 23 years, and I've been the building official since July of 2016. So I'm just coming up on my 8-year mark of being the building official.
Also, same question for Master Code Professional, because that's what we really get to dive in today. You've got your MCP how long ago?
If I look on my wall and I have my Master Code Professional up there on the wall, it says March of 2014. So it's 10 years ago.
What was that process like, going from CBO to MCP and probably everywhere in between?
For me, I'm an old master electrician by trade. And so I did electrical for decades, and then put my tools down in '01 to become a building inspector, and did, 11 years in the field, and then did some years in plans exam. And so for me, when I came to work at the city of North Las Vegas, I was all electrical. And we had this electrical guy that was like the electrical go-to guy. And so he was off in the electric code. So I kind of went off into the building code early in my career at the city. And at that time, I was just trying to get commercial combination inspector. I just wanted to have mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and building commercial combo. At that time, they didn't have it was still under the old ICBO. So they didn't have the IRC. You had like combination dwelling back then. Yeah. And so when I started out with those 4 core inspector certs, in today's world, I would do things a lot differently than I did back then to get the certifications that I have now. But there's several of them that I have now.
You mentioned you have a background in electrical. I'm putting 2 and 2 together. You have that near Las Vegas. I'm sure you have some crazy stories of working on casinos or just all the crazy structural and electrical systems out there. What was that like?
Funny, because my first time to code development hearings was in 2009. And I have this token code, which is marking of fire resistant construction, because I was an old electrician with a hammer, and I would be putting holes in walls, not knowing necessarily that they were protected walls. And so I learned through code development and through being an electrician, and I learned that value of all the codes beyond the electric code, because I came in knowing all the electric code, or I thought I knew the electric code. I mean, I think what's funny is we think we know what the code is when we're working out there in industry. And then when we become certified in the code and we start really diving into the code books, we realize what is really code and what's like industry practices and stuff. And so there was that whole learning curve of learning what the code actually says to what I was doing out there in the field as an electrician.
Well said. As you look back on your career, was there a threshold where you were like, okay, I think I'm going to pursue the MCP, or did you just, for lack of better words, stumble into it?
Funny. So I wanted to be a full commercial combo. So I got those 4 certs. And then I went back to get the plans exam cert. So when I first started taking tests, it was like 150 questions, 100 questions closed book. You had to do a paper pencil. They didn't have remote testing. And so I wanted to just become a full commercial combination plans examiner and inspector. And then there was this code hearing in Charlotte, North Carolina. And that day at the code hearing, I took 4 tests in one day. And I was heading towards MCP. I was like, okay, Master Code Professional. And so I made myself a list. And at the top of the list, I put Valerie's Path to MCP. And as I got a cert, I'd highlight the certs. And back then, it was a little bit different than it is now, getting Master Code Professional designation. And so I took 4 tests at that code hearing. In one day, I took plumbing plans examiner, plumbing inspector, mechanical plans examiner, and mechanical inspector. And so I chuckled my way through taking 4 tests in a day. But that was about when I decided that I wanted to do everything I could to achieve the Master Code Professional designation. And I really started putting in an effort to take the tests and study and prepare myself for them. But I didn't just go take the test. We would study, we as in me or anybody that I knew at the time that was taking exams, we would study with flashcards and handbooks and really try to navigate by learning the code to get prepared for a test. To bottom line, end up 75% the day in the chair.
Yeah. And so there were days where, like at the code hearings, you knocked out several in a row, but surely you had some challenges along the way too. What were some of the obstacles that you ran into in this journey?
One thing is an obstacle is not taking every test that I had in my head. Like at that time, if I was studying for electrical exams, then I think people should take like the electrical inspector, the electrical plans examiner, the residential electrical inspector. They should take everything within that scope of knowledge and not just take like electrical inspector and then 4 years later come back to take electrical plans examiner.
Right.
That's how we were geared towards studying back in the day. And so that was a challenge to get yourself back in a book and retrain yourself in a newer version of a code. But it took a minute. Like I've taken that list of Master Code Professional tests, several of my team members here at North Las Vegas, and I put their name at the top. And I said, here's your path to MCP. And some of them are working on it now. And they just start highlighting off what they get. And then we help reimburse them so that they can get the training and pay for the exams and help more MCPs come along.
Now, what about after becoming an MCP? Did you say, that's it, I'm done with these exams?
Once you start, you're pretty committed to continue that and go beyond. Like I'm not just Master Code Professional. I went beyond and I got that certified fire marshal. So I got all those.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got all those so that some of the team that I supervise are all fire inspectors. And so I just want to be able to navigate my way through the book. And that's one of the biggest things, Bo, that I think I got from becoming a Master Code Professional was the ability to really navigate through a code book and any code book. And I think I have a little bit of a better understanding of the way the code books are written and laid out that helps me to do my research a little bit better because I've taken so many tests and I've gone through the book so many times that it makes it easier to really navigate the books as they come out.
What are some tips for, I remember Frank Morris. I don't know if you know who Frank Morris is. He teaches a lot for the CBO. And I loved at the end of his class, he just walked through the real practical tips, the real nitty gritty stuff. So for anybody out there who might be pursuing the MCP certification, what are some real practical tips that you could give them?
For test taking in general, like all tests are just the day in the chair. And I really believe that, like it's 75% the day in the chair. And if I get 75% that day in the chair, then I pass that test. And so there's that whole testing component that has to come with it. There's people that are really good at the code and they're not the best test takers. And so the way ICC has Pronto online testing, you can use digital codes for your test.
Right.
You can use any copyrighted bound book for your test. And I don't think a lot of people know that you can bring in any copyrighted bound book for an exam. And then I have my own little way of doing tests, and how I go through all the questions and mark which ones that I'm not sure of and look up every one. It could be the simplest code that I know the answer to off the cuff, but I still take the time to see it in writing because I don't do that to our customers. If a customer asks me a code section, I show them the code section or I read them the code section. So I think bridging that gap of fear of test taking, I study with flashcards and I study with the guides to the code, the workbooks to the code, and I take a couple months to prep for a test. And I've been pretty successful. I've only failed a couple tests in all the tests that I've ever taken. I've only not passed a couple, but I think all the tests that you have to take to be master code professional, like you're in a lot of different books, and it really does teach you how to navigate through those books so that you can be better at test taking and be a better master code professional. Because the bottom line, it still boils down to like knowledge and experience. I would hope that the MCP designation would boil down to not just be how many days did I sit in a chair, but how much effort has I put into learning the books, learning the codes, learning how to apply the codes, learning how to interpret the codes, and really navigate through those questions. That's really what a master code professional is to me.
When I first got this job with my jurisdiction, they said, the best advice I can give you for stepping into this line of work is remember to smell like a dog. And I said, what? Smell like a dog? What's that mean? He goes, if you're going to take your dog to someone who works with dogs and trains dogs, you want the one who smells like a dog, who has been there and working with the dogs and knows what it's like to actually get their hands dirty. That was the best advice someone gave me. Smell like a dog. And so I think that's what our inspectors should be. They should have a little bit of that dog smell on them. So I love how you said that. What about career opportunities? ICC has played such a huge role in my life of opening up career opportunities. So remember back for you, what was it like getting that first certification and what career opportunities presented itself to now the MCP and maybe new career opportunities that you didn't even know were out there?
Yeah, my first certification was electrical inspector.
Yeah.
Obviously. And then I took the position as a trainee in 2001 and didn't foresee, ending up as a career as the building official for North Las Vegas. And I love North Las Vegas. I love what we do here. I love the programs that we create here. And I owe that all to the team, right? I owe every bit of it, to the team. And in the process of that, being able to have that designation and call Dominic Sims and ask him what number MCP I was a pleasure to be able to say that I'm master code professional number 806, and
yeah.
When you look back at some of the people on the list, there's International Code Council history of people that have come through code development and taken the time to achieve that designation. Like there are some professionals there that are not even with us anymore that that molded our careers long before we ever even got here.
We're standing on their shoulders. Yeah.
The Bobby Fowler and those people that were like groundbreaking as it relates to code development and master code professional and designations like this. And so, yeah, I'm really super grateful that I had an opportunity in my career to get to MCP, and really the less climatic is better for me.
Yeah.
Like the little tiny bit of climatic is better for me.
All those hours though, you put into something and it's okay. Here's your certification. Go buy your frame.
It is, but then it's also maintaining it because master code professional takes 60 hours. Certified building official takes 60 hours. I have a couple NFPA pro board certs that take 60 hours. I have my master electrician that I maintain that takes a whole boatload of hours. And so also there's that, it's not just about sitting and getting continuing education hours. The way you can maintain these kinds of certifications is to, write articles and be on committees. I'm on the electrical exam committee. Being on committees and being involved, that's that networking that you were talking about,
right?
As it relates to maintaining all these certifications, doing more than just sitting in an 8-hour class, getting 0.8 CEUs for it.
I have a fun last question for you, if that's okay. Again, being that you're in Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, a kind of traditional question for the podcast is, what's your favorite building? And I'm going to put you in a box here. You might have a favorite building in New York City, but that's off limits. I need you to pick a favorite building and tell us why for Las Vegas, Nevada.
So in Las Vegas and Clark County, we have the Las Vegas Strip. It's the big and the weird of the Las Vegas Strip. We have every country and state and everything known to man here. And my favorite building in Southern Nevada is the City Hall for North Las Vegas, the building that I work in.
Really?
It's a 9-story. We only have a couple high rises in North Las Vegas. We have this one and we have Aliante. And so we do a lot more industrial, heavy industrial, commercial manufacturing. up here, but the buildings on the strip,
Oh
any one of
my.
them to be the best building, right? But the one that feeds my spirit, feeds my family, the one that I is the North Las Vegas City Hall.
Okay. Well,
And
fair
I
point.
want to pick this 9-story building that I'm in right now on the first floor. I'm on the first floor.
See, this is why I love that question. You never know what you're going to hear. Valerie, thanks so much for your time here today. What you've accomplished in your career, you're raising the bar on what it means to be a professional in the building safety world. And all of us tip our hat to you. I want to bring in another MCP with an amazing story. But first, let's hear a quick message from Lowe's, our sponsor for this episode.
Savings. Now that's speaking the Lowe's language. And with My Lowe's Rewards, your savings just keep coming with member-only offers. Learn more about our new loyalty program at lowes.com/My Lowe's Rewards. Subject to terms and conditions, see lowes.com/terms for details.
So our next guest is Lucas Pump. Lucas is a building inspector for the city of Cedar Rapids. Lucas, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So this episode in particular is all about the Master Code Professional designation. You have gone above and beyond when it comes to the certifications required, and that is just incredible. Tell us about that story, how you got there. Was there a certain point where you were like, you know what, I'm close, I got to keep going? Tell us about the story.
Yeah, a little bit. Like when I first started, I started with the city of Cedar Rapids in 2009 as a rental housing inspector as well as code enforcement. It was a requirement to get the housing, the property maintenance certification within the first year, but I wanted to get it in the first month. So I got it done. I studied, got it done, and I got kind of an adrenaline rush when I passed. And so I just kept going. I did the zoning one, and I just couldn't get over the feeling. Most people hate taking exams, but I actually really liked it. I liked the feeling of passing. But I had a coworker that he made a competitive race out of it. So he had started after me, and I'd already had maybe 4 or 5 certifications when he came over, and he started trying to race me. So truth be known, there's actually 2 MCPs in our office. He did actually beat me. I think he got his in 2021, but
That's incredible.
yeah, we made a fun race out of it anyway.
And
So
what does he do?
he does our commercial plan reviews.
Building official is incredibly fortunate to have such
Yeah.
qualified people.
Yeah, so he's, like I said, we actually have our manager, one of our managers that is a MCP as well. So
Wow.
yeah, we've had kind of a culture around here of trying to take exams. And I guess one great thing about my director is that he's always supported getting certifications. He always said, go get them. I don't even care if you don't pass. Just go take them. Dive into the books. Don't worry about that line item on the budget. We'll make it work no matter what. So it was always incentivized to go take tests. Good culture really built here in Cedar Rapids. And I think pretty much everybody in our department has at least one certification, if not several. So yeah,
That's
pretty
incredible.
proud of our department.
Was there a tipping point for you though, or was it always, you talk about that culture, maybe from the jump you had your eyes set on MCP, but was there a tipping point where you realized you were, oh my gosh, I have all these certifications. If I get, a few more, I'm there?
It wasn't my initial goal to get MCP, to be honest with you. I started off getting, like I said, property maintenance, zoning, and then I wanted to get all the trades, all the residential trades.
Right.
I just thought, okay, at that point, I feel pretty good. But then, like you said, you start getting into where you're like, hey, I'm not that far away. All I have to get is my commercial ones for the core, my commercial trades, and then I'm right there. It really doesn't start seeming obtainable, at least it didn't to me, until I had all the residential trades done.
Yeah.
And I had a handful of electives done, and I'm like, all right, I'm close now. Like I can do this. And I realized, hey, I can get a jacket and a cool lapel out of this. That's totally worth it. I mean, it's kind of like the green jacket, right?
That's
For masters.
Yeah. Surely there were some obstacles and challenges that you ran into. I mean, you're talking about this a little too nonchalantly of, I just casually got my MCP, no big deal. Talk to us about some of the obstacles you faced.
Well, like I said, a big obstacle was just finding time to study. That was probably the biggest obstacle. And the other obstacle is getting into different code books that you're not really necessarily familiar with,
Yeah.
So when I grew up, my grandpa was the town handyman and electrician. So I grew up running wire with him. And so I was pretty comfortable with electrical. But there's other things I wasn't as comfortable with. I'll be honest with you. I'm not as comfortable with plumbing. When it comes into like venting and all that type of stuff and bathroom groups, I think
You and I we're opposites. I cut my teeth in plumbing, and electrical is what scares me the most.
Yeah. Well, I do say that, but the commercial electrical exam was a complete pain in the butt. It was one of my very few that I had to retake. I failed the commercial electrical, which was pretty devastating to me because,
Yeah, shot to the ego, huh?
well, yeah. And in my past life, I had a short stint when I was right out of college where I went to school for industrial maintenance initially. And I was in a factory setting where I was working on like 3-phase motors and PLCs, programmable logic controllers, and things like that. So I felt really good. And I probably was overconfident. And I don't know about your take, guys, but like that NEC, the paper of the book is like tissue paper. It's hard to find anything either. So it's like, and the I codes are set up, toot the horn of the I codes. The index is laid out very well.
Yeah.
The NEC is just not laid out very well. Now, if you talk to some electricians, they'll say it's laid out great. And the most common stuff is up front with the NEC, your branch circuits, your services. It does kind of go into logic. And if it's something odd, like boat slips or something, that's in the back, right? So you get a feel for how it's laid out, but it was a little bit of a struggle there. So
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you're right. The NAC and just the layout in general you got to relearn it almost.
Right.
So give us some tips. Give us some pro tips on if some people are out there listening and they're in this process, maybe they're halfway, maybe they're just beginning the process. What would you tell them to encourage them?
I guess what I recommend doing is what I did was I actually job shadowed some of our other inspectors. So I went out, like I said earlier, I wasn't as comfortable with plumbing, and I actually went out on job sites with our plumbing inspector. And so that way, when you're going through the book, the terminology starts to make sense because you start saying, okay, well, actually, I remember looking at that. Or maybe if you're not as familiar with electrical, go out with your electrical inspector and talk about bonding and grounding and the differences and service sizes and things like that. And then all of a sudden, when you go to take the test, it seems like a click. Now, maybe had that advantage, and if you're in a small jurisdiction, maybe you don't have that advantage, but if you're in a larger jurisdiction where you have separate inspectors, I would definitely recommend piggybacking on some of those guys' knowledge, and then the books will make more sense. The other thing to do is when you go to conferences and things like that, I started going to different trainings that I was completely not comfortable with, or maybe I wasn't as comfortable with. I think a lot of people get pigeonholed into, if they normally do electrical inspections, I'm going to go to the electrical update class. That's great and all, but if you're not very comfortable with, let's say, concrete foundations, go to that one, go to that class, and then that'll help as you go to take the test. Because at some point, something will click of something you heard in a conference. You get yourself a little more familiar with it, and it might force you to get into the book. You might say, "Well, that's not in the code, is it?" Or that doesn't make any sense, And so you start digging into the code book.
What career opportunities has this certification yielded in your life? Have you seen any changes there?
Yeah, I definitely have. I've definitely had, let's just say this in a nice way, the other jurisdictions that have reached out with job openings, wanting to let me know that they had a job opening. So it's been very good. The issue, though, I have a wife and kids that like here in Cedar Rapids, so it's tough to leave, even if it was going to be a promotion. And like I said, I have great coworkers and things like that. Well, the other thing it has done for me, though, is I've gotten to serve on several exam committees, code development committees. I also I got invited to be part of the creation of the Code Officer Safety CLA, which most people aren't familiar with what that is, but you get on there and you watch a whole bunch of video content, and then you add questions and answers at the end of each session. So I was formulating a lot of those questions and answers and had to sit through some of that content. But I guess my point is that I probably would have never had that opportunity had I, had 2 certifications and I'm just a random inspector from Cedar Rapids. But it snowballs. So you get your Master Code Professional certification, and then all of a sudden it looks better when you go to an exam development committee application. You put that on there. I think it holds a little bit of clout. And then one thing just kind of leads to another. And before you know it, you're helping out on different projects.
Lucas, 2 things come to mind. First off, strong plug for Cedar Rapids. Well done there. Management will be happy about that.
Yeah.
Also, you're a relatively young guy. So when you walk in the room talking about that clout, are people taken aback of?
I do have gray hair in my beard. I mean, it's getting gray. I have 2 daughters, so they put some gray hair in there. But yeah, I don't get too much of that. Whenever you are dealing with a contractor or just even a fellow inspector, I think you gain a little bit of respect because they know that you've gone through and taken this many exams, and they know that you're well-rounded. So now your opinion might matter more.
Okay. You talked about loving and almost a euphoric experience of taking tests. I think you might be a small minority there. But nevertheless, now what? You've achieved the pinnacle of certifications with ICC. What's on the horizon for you next?
Yeah, I think I want to continue to stay involved with committees. Like I said, I'm currently a secretary of our local chapter. I'll probably work with that, and I'll probably eventually who knows? Maybe someday I'll go for the board of directors. I don't know, of ICC.
There you go.
I've segued away from certifications now a little bit and just have focused more now on networking and getting involved.
Yeah, really leveraging that certification that you have now for more professional development experiences, just no more test, which is sad for you. I'm sorry.
Right. Well,
surely we can come up with something.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably still take them. I feel like the ICC always has a new exam every so often. There's a certification for residential sprinklers for the 13D system. I might take that exam. So just getting in some of these more specifics, more
nuanced.
Nuanced and certifications. I may still take a few of those just so I can get my euphoric sense back every once in a while.
There's other hobbies for that, just to let you know.
Right.
Okay. So you talked a lot about these committees and things of that nature. How important has that been? Just networking within the ICC community. That's been one of my favorite things since I began this chapter of my professional life and getting to meet some of those individuals. How important has that been for you?
Oh, it's very important. I mean, it's been great. It gives me a sense of community among code geeks, basically. I was talking to a coworker the other day about it, and he's like, "You've been doing this for how many years?" So since about 15 years. He goes, and I don't know about 15 years because he's fairly new. And I said, well, you got to get involved. Go to hearings, submit a code change, start somewhere to get involved. I go, because it'll give you a sense of pride other than just this job day in and day out. You can't just come in every day. If you really want to stay satisfied with this job, to me, the path is through involvement with ICC and committees.
And it allows us, there's probably innate desire in all of us to be a part of something bigger. And ICC provides that. We're all working in our local jurisdictions, focused on the day-to-day, but occasionally we get to pull back and see the bigger picture. And you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head there. That's incredibly important. So I'm currently in the process of testing for my CBO certification. And I'm gonna be honest with you, man, I haven't thought that far ahead. I haven't thought about pursuing an MCP certification. So what would you say to a guy like me?
I'd say do it. I think, like you said, it gives you some clout among your peers, as well as expands the type of inspections you can do. I mean, if you're truncated into just building officially, you might look at things at just a high level administrative stuff. Whereas I've noticed that my bosses in particular have used me being an MCP to use me essentially as I could do anything. So if we have, somebody that's out sick that is normally our electrical inspector, well, guess what? Now I'm the electrical inspector today, so you become an asset to your organization. But it's been good. It's been fun, and I don't regret getting it by any means. It's been a nice badge of honor.
Nice. Again, thanks for taking time to be with us today. It's been fun getting to hear your story.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, I want to bring it back. What did I call her earlier? The Yoda of ICC's exam universe? Let's bring back Autumn Saylor. Autumn, we just heard from a couple of MCPs about how they got here and what they did after. From the Code Council standpoint, what are some things MCPs can do once they get that designation? Have they just plateaued in their career?
They certainly haven't plateaued. There's lots of options that are available to them, such as becoming a part of our committees that we offer. We have our Professional Development Council, which is our certification committee, and our education committee. We have exam development committees. We have our membership council. Although those aren't only available to MCPs, they are available to all members of ICC.
Really? So I'm glad you clarified that, because genuinely, as I've thought through this and even my career of what I would like to do and what I'd like to be a part of, I was under the impression that I would have to get an MCP to be a part of those committees. So that's not the case?
That is not the case. Membership may be required for some of the committees, but you do not have to have specific certifications to be a part of all of the committees at ICC. I would recommend that you visit our committee page that we have on our website, and it'll go through what the requirements are for each committee.
Oh, so that is printed in black and white.
It is.
Incredible. Okay. And then also, I would imagine, one of the questions that we asked some of the other MCPs was how important it is just to rub shoulders with other ICC members. And in getting your MCP, you get the opportunity to do that more than maybe someone who has one certificate. And so as you get to know other folks, there's got to be some natural, organic conversations that happen to where, hey, you might be good at this committee. Have you ever thought about this? Does that happen more times than not, where people just get invited to be a part of a committee?
My understanding is that, yes, that is the case. Typically, your MCPs will be more well-rounded. And so they're more likely to go to our conferences and have those general networking opportunities.
This is another genuine personal question. If I have any credentialing, I'm struggling with that word, credentialing questions, do I call and ask for you? Or you mentioned a team earlier. I would imagine you have a great team around you. Is there a department or is there an extension? What do I do if I have credentialing problems?
If you need to speak to a representative, you would call our customer success center. They
Okay.
would be the ones that would handle it. If it is something that needs to be directed to my team, then you would come over to my team directly, where one of us or I would reach out to you. I do get to speak with candidates. I find that to be a great part of my job, to be able to speak directly to our candidates. I do deal a lot more with jurisdictions, more of the client level, but I do get to speak to some of you.
Good to know. Okay. Bonus round. You knew it was
Okay.
coming.
I did.
Autumn, where are you located? First question.
Birmingham, Alabama.
Birmingham, Alabama. When I think Birmingham, Alabama, I think amazing buildings and architecture. I don't know about anyone else, but you've got to have a favorite, and it doesn't have to be in Birmingham. What is your favorite building and why?
Okay, it is not in Birmingham. And I'll tell you, I feel a little silly saying this, but it's actually the Broadmoor Hotel in Colorado Springs.
Really?
Yes.
Okay,
Have you
what's the
had an
story?
opportunity to be there?
I have not.
Okay,
I'm
so
Googling it now.
you need to. It's beautiful. So it's a historic building or hotel, resort, actually. I've been there a couple of times. I've been very fortunate. I think it's a Mediterranean style architecture. It's beautiful. The buildings,
Oh, wow.
yeah, the buildings are just picturesque. The views are amazing. And as you walk through each one of the buildings on the resort, because you can go through all of them, they're similar in style, but they're all different. The furnishings, the decor, it's amazing.
Plus, up against the backdrop of the Rockies.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good answer. That was solid.
Yeah. Good. Because I will tell you, I struggled. I'm like, do I even have one? And I thought about that. I'm like, no, I can't say that. So I'm like, but it's not the Washington Monument or any of those.
I love it. Autumn, thank you for what you do. You play a huge part in, like you said, in the building safety world. And ICC is better because of folks like you. So thank you for what you do. Thanks for taking time to be with us on this podcast. Hopefully our listeners are encouraged. They got to hear from a couple of different MCPs. And so hearing it from both sides, both from your side behind the scenes and then also their sides when they actually walk through the process. It's been encouraging to me, and hopefully I would love to have my MCP. We'll see how that goes. But thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I can't thank Autumn, Valerie Evans, and Lucas Pump enough for not only explaining the path to MCP, but hopefully inspiring some of you to undertake it yourself. And if you want to learn more about becoming an MCP, visit iccsafe.org/MCP-qualifications. Again, that's iccsafe.org/MCP-qualifications. This is the last episode of Season 6 of the Pulse Podcast, so be sure to subscribe and look back at previous episodes for more interesting building safety topics. And as always, I'll remind us that in these knowledge-driven conversations that we get to have every single day, people don't care how much we know until they know how much we care. So let's be quick to listen, slow to speak, and I hope to meet you back here next season on the ICC Pulse Podcast.